is Ron Wenzel. I pastor Rosewood Heights Community Church, and about 6 months ago I started to pastor in First Baptist Hartford as well. So I'm managing two small churches, and it's a challenge, but it's worked out really well. Neither church could afford a full-time minister, and so it worked out well for everybody. I was born and raised in Alton, lived here into my 20s, and then I went on an adventure through the Midwest. I was in the insurance business for 20-something years and traveled all over the Midwest, lived in Missouri and Nebraska, Wisconsin, Indiana, and finally Kentucky. I missed Iowa. I feel bad about that.
Yeah, they do too.
And then along the way, I started out Catholic. I was Lutheran, evangelical free, two kinds of Presbyterian, two kinds of Baptist, preached a while in a Methodist congregation. But anyway, felt called to ministry and ended up back here where I did my ministry work. So wherever you've been and whatever you have been, I've been those things too. So I've wanted to write books my entire life, and finally decided a few years ago I would get serious about it. And I started with this book, and you've got a little yellow bookmark kind of thing on your place there. This is a novel. It's set in a fictional town of Almost, Illinois, which is a pseudonym for Alton. If you look closely at the cover, you can see the Douglas statue and the Grand Theater and the Mineral Springs Hotel and some other locations. My daughter-in-law, who's a gifted artist, she mashed these photos up for me and made the cover for me. And so the story is about what would happen in a small town if we lost power and we didn't know if it was coming back. But it's not The Walking Dead Part 3. It's told with a sense of humor. It's a character study of what people in a small town might really do those first few days when you didn't know what was going on. So it's not a horror story. The ghosts that appear are the ghosts of famous people. While all this is going on, a device has gone off in the sky, shutting off all power, including generators and batteries don't work either. And then while people are trying to figure out what's going on, then ghosts of famous people are making appearances in Alton. And they're kind of like Christmas Carol ghosts. They're observing about what's going on, that sort of thing. So it's told with a sense of humor. One of the reviews on Amazon, I've got 29 5-star reviews on Amazon, and there's a long waiting list at the Hainer Library for those who prefer to wait instead of buy. But anyway, it's gotten good reviews and good reception. But as you read the book, you can if you know Alton, you can recognize kind of where you are in the book. But it's not necessary to know Alton to enjoy it. So that was my first book, and it's been fun doing that the last few years. This is the book that just completed a few months ago. When I was finishing up seminary, I was going to Kansas City on Monday morning about 4:30 in the morning. I wouldn't get back till Wednesday about 8 o'clock at night. I was taking full-time classes, but I had a lot of downtime between classes, and so I decided to research the topic of angels. I was curious as to what the Bible had to say about angels. So I spent a lot of time researching, hours and hours of research, and basically been playing with this information that I've been gathering for over 10 years. I do speaking engagements at churches of various denominations. I've spoken in 2 different Methodist denominations, 2 different Baptist denominations, other churches as well, on the topic of angels, of what we can know about angels in the Bible. This is my 3rd version of the book. I didn't publish the first 2 because I just didn't feel like I had it where I wanted it, but this book has worked out very well. So I'm working on another angel book, and I'm adapting the format to fit this format because I've gotten so much good feedback on it. The way it works is basically, we know that the Bible tells the story of people, we know it tells the story of God, but a little harder to detect behind the scenes, it also tells the story of the angels. They don't just appear in random, fragmented situations. Their plot, their story is interwoven with our own. And what I've tried to do is to patch together that story in a way that's easy to follow. Whether you're a person that reads the Bible or not, you can read this book and understand what the Bible has to say about the story of the angels. It's told simply. The first part of each chapter begins with a piece of the story, and almost every sentence in that first part of the chapter is footnoted, so you can see the part of the Bible that I'm getting the information from. So if you say, well, that can't be true, well, you can look at the footnote and see in the Bible itself where it says that. And then the second part of each chapter explains, goes into further explanation about what we can know about the angels in that particular part of the story. So I've gotten a lot of great feedback on it. from various denominations. Father Jerry Wickenhauser also gave his seal of approval on it, so if you're Catholic, it's okay. You can buy this, it's okay. Got a priest's approval.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, some things that, things that we historically or traditionally think of about angels, we have a tendency to think of them, I don't know about you, but a lot of my culture was, a lot of things in my worldview were formed by Bugs Bunny. Like, when Yosemite Sam dies and goes to heaven, he sprouts angels' wings and a halo, and he's in heaven. But the Bible does not say that we turn into angels when we die. Even though you see obituaries almost every week, oh, Aunt Mabel died, and, heaven just got their newest angel. No, it's not that way. Angels are in heaven. Hopefully we'll be in heaven. But we don't become angels. We don't sprout wings. In fact, there is no description in the Bible of an angel appearing as a human being with two wings. Not a single description in the Bible of an angel appearing as a human being with two wings. There are descriptions where they appear as human. There are descriptions given of when they appear with wings, but usually they have 4 or 6. And they also have 4 or 6 faces, eyeballs all over their bodies, and all kinds of other strange developments. So the angels don't always appear in one way, which was a big shock to me, because growing up as a kid, I had a big picture of an angel over my bed, and it was a female-looking angel with long flowing robes, and she was floating over a bridge, and this boy and girl were walking across the bridge, and then the river was raging underneath the bridge. And another thing, there's no description of an angel looking feminine. They always appear in a male appearance in the Scripture. Now that does not mean that God can't use, they appear in lots of different forms and lots of different ways in Scripture. That doesn't mean that God couldn't use such an image today to convey something. He could use the image that we're familiar with, but that image doesn't come from the Bible. It comes from the Middle Ages. It comes from things like Dante's Inferno and Milton's Paradise Lost and great works of Renaissance art, and even before the Renaissance, pictures that show the angels in certain ways, and that's where our ideas come from. Now in Bugs Bunny, we also have when Bugs, at least one our cartoon, he's got a bad angel on his left shoulder and a good angel on his right shoulder, right? And then the idea of a guardian angel comes up. That image or that picture actually comes from ancient Hebrew belief, from writings outside the Scripture. That particular viewpoint is not expressed in Scripture, but it is something that very many ancient Jewish people believed, and early Christians as well, that you had both a good and a bad angel who could lead you toward right or wrong in individual situations. We know from the Bible that Michael is an archangel. That's the highest rank of angels. No other angels are named in Scripture as being archangels, but probably Gabriel is. We hear a lot about Gabriel in the Scriptures. Ancient Jewish belief was that there was at least 4, and sometimes they will describe as many as 8 in writings outside the Bible, which we can learn a lot about what the Hebrew people believed. They usually in ancient Hebrew literature or in medieval art, 4 archangels are often depicted, and it's usually Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel. And I'm not sure if any of the other Ninja Turtles were involved. So there's that. There are different ranks of angels. We think of cherubs as being they're on your Valentine's Day card. It's a little baby with 2 little wings, and they're kind of flitting around and looking cute with big pudgy cheeks. Well, Satan was a cherub. So that's not the way. Their description is very powerful. When Adam and Eve were ushered out of the Garden of Eden, a giant cherub angel was there swinging a flaming sword to keep them from coming back in. And their appearance is very radical. Very radical. The ones I described with having more than one face and that sort, that is probably what a cherubim looks like in its natural state. But again, angels may have the ability to appear any of a number of ways. Guardian angels is a question that comes up a lot, and basically, to make a long story short, it's reasonable to believe from what we see in Scripture that we do have guardian angels, but there's not a knockout punch either way that assures you that you do, and there's not a knockout punch for the other viewpoint that we don't. But the ancient Jewish people did believe that we had guardian angels, and that was a prevalent view among early Christians.
So Clarence really could have been on the bridge when He jumped off in it.
Well, I mean, absolutely, absolutely.
So good already.
So that's sort of the note. Basically this story picks up with the creation of angels. One thing that's distinctively different between our culture and between what the Bible actually teaches is that most often we hear that Satan and the fallen angels all fell at the dawn of time. They were created and they immediately fell in a battle with God. But the scripture does not tell that story. That's a story that comes from Milton's Paradise Lost. The actual scriptural story that was held by ancient Jewish and Christian peoples universally was that Satan fell alone in the Garden of Eden at the point where he tempted Adam and Eve, and the rest of the angels fell later. And the book goes into detail on how that happens from a scriptural standpoint. So that's kind of an overview of some of the highlights of the book.